Welcome back, everyone, to another installment of Whiteboard Wednesdays. This is week 3. All right, so if you are still interested in seeing other talks that I've given the past 2 weeks, you more than welcome to go and check them out. The first one was on how to program sprints and jumps. The second one was talking about Charlie Francis's model of the high-low system. Really good information there. I highly recommend anyone that's interested to go check that out. But today, this is going to be something that kind of builds off the very first one that I did, is that how do we properly warm up for a sprint session? All right, not many people can just roll out of bed and get up and go sprint max effort and do a full sprint session. And for those of you who haven't sprinted in quite some time, you're probably going to need to warm up before you even attempt a max effort sprint over 10 yards. All right, that's a big issue that we see with fitness enthusiasts, people that really love the stuff and the style of training that I do or other coaches in my industry do, but they haven't run a sprint since high school days, and now they're pushing 40 and they go out in the field with their buddies thinking it'd be pretty fun for a fantasy football draft who can have the fastest 40, and not a single hamstring survives that session. All right, so it's important to always warm up first, and I'm going to give you a very easy system to follow. I do this with every single one of my athletes, and I know a lot of coaches do the exact same thing, and it would be very easy to remember. All right, so right now we'll get into it. The system that we're going to be using is called the RAMP method, R-A-M-P. Let's break down each letter so it's easy to remember and so you can take it into your next session. All right, so R in the RAMP means raise. All right, what are we raising? We're not raising the roof. We're raising our core body temperature. All right, when we warm up, one of the main indicators of a great warm up is that our core body temperature has elevated. All right, if you've ever been cold and stiff, you realize you can't really move that well, versus when you loosen up and you get the blood flowing and you get warm, then your body takes that guard off. That guard is called inhibition. We want to eliminate inhibition as much as possible, where we can just go and then perform at our highest level the best that we can. That is the first step in this method. For some people, it's a light jog around the track. All right, it's shuffles, karaoke's, jump rope, jumping jacks, anything that you can do. Spike ball. I mean, spike ball probably hits all of these, but I'll get into that later. But anything that gets your heart rate up and you get a little bit of breathing in and you're sweating. All right, essentially you want to go into your workout with a little bit of a sweat and you'll get a little looser as you're moving and as you're warming up. Second one, A. A stands for activate. Activate. All right, here we're going to try to activate key muscle groups. All right, so for sprinting, I'll use sprinting as our main example for today. What is a main muscle group that will be used during a sprint? We have our glutes, we have our hamstrings, we have our hip flexors, calves, core, upper body as well, even because it has to rotate. All right, any type of rotation, anything involving that, we want to activate. It doesn't mean that these muscles are just turned off throughout the day. It's just that we want to get them a little bit more primed to feel like they're ready to go. For glutes, my favorite are just glute bridges, single leg glute bridges, fast, try to move them quick, try to get the hips going. Hamstrings, anything that can kind of fire them up. I like the single leg RDL with the reach, or just a kick where you're kicking the leg up. Anything that kind of turns the muscle on. And you'll see the next one that they're kind of similar and they're a little bit interchangeable. And this is why we're going to go into the third one. M. Mobilize. M is for mobilize. So, activated, we're turning the muscles on, all right, but now we're going to try to get a little bit more range of motion in those key muscle groups that I talked about. A main thing that I really want to hammer home, though, mobilize does not mean stretching. You don't want to stretch a muscle and hold it there in a position for an extended period of time. That's actually going to slow your central nervous system down, put it into a state of relaxation, and it's going to hinder your performance because it's going to make you slower. All right, you don't want to stretch. You've never seen a cheetah stretch before it started sprinting, so you shouldn't either. All right, there's nothing wrong with doing it post-workout as a little bit means of recovery, or just obviously stretching and mobility and flexibility is a good characteristic to have. But right before your sprint session, you shouldn't be doing long static holds. All right, that's not going to be the best bang for your buck before you get into it. We want to think whippy, we want to think fast, we want to think mobile. And what's the difference between mobility and flexibility? Well, mobility is being able to control your joint in a very controlled manner. All right, so it's basically, can you move your joint like a hip flex, like a hip 90-90 or a hip controlled articular rotation? Same thing with the shoulder. Mobility is being able to passively and actively move through ranges of motion where you're fully in control of it. All right, stretching, static stretching, you just hold the position and you count for 30 seconds. Think mobility is going to be reps. You're going to be moving through this. So for me, with my guys, I'll do this, or girls, the spider lunge with rotation, or the world's greatest stretch if you're familiar with it, Cossack squats, lateral squats, squats, all right, inchworms with or without a push-up. 90-90s are a great hip opener as well, or anything that has to open up the hip and then close the hip. We want to make sure the hips are nice and loose before we get into sprinting. All right, when I talk about, this would probably be next week's episode of sprint biomechanics. So a little teaser here. You want your hips to be loose and mobile in order to move through the necessary range of motion in order to accelerate and in order to hit top end velocity. All right, it all comes from the hips. A lot of the drills that I do with my athletes, everything has to do with the hip flexors, the front of the hip, side of the hip, the back of the hip, and the glutes. If those are weak and very stiff, you're not going to get the most out of your stride length and your stride frequency. All right, so that's where sprinting comes into play. So mobilize. This is going to be towards the middle of your warm-up, kind of getting towards the end. Like I said, I kind of flip A and M around. The order doesn't matter, but as long as you do these 4 things, you're going to be fine in the warm-up. But the last one, and most likely the most important one, is potentiate. Potentiate. All right, so for those of you that don't know that word, potentiation, you're pretty much just firing up your central nervous system. Your central nervous system is your brain, your spinal cord, and how it responds to the activity and the stimulus that you want it to get. Earlier in this episode, I talked about inhibition and how you want to eliminate that. All right, potentiation is the best way to do that. All right, this is what's going to get your brain firing on all cylinders so it can tell your muscles to fire at a faster rate. And speed, in the name of the game, is velocity. All right, it's how fast you can move your body from point A to point B in a short amount of time as possible. So in order for that to happen, your brain needs to be awake and needs to be fired up. And the best way I use this potentiation piece right here is jumping. All right, so this is why it all kind of ties into play. Broad jumps, horizontal force production, really good in terms of just your first 10 to 20 yards. All right, your ability to produce force with no buildup whatsoever. From a standstill, you have all the potential energy in the world, but no kinetic. All right, so you're completely stuck at the start line. What does that resemble in a jump format is a stationary broad jump, all right, a single effort broad jump. So that's why those are really good and why I've seen a great correlation between my athletes with the best broad jumps tend to have the best 10-yard dash times. All right, it's not really a mind-blowing discovery. It's just powerful hip extension and how you're able to translate that from the jump to the sprint. And it also aids in a great warm-up tool as well. Hurdle jumps, working on quick ground contact time, trying to get as fast as you can off the ground. And then anything that challenges you with rhythm and with fluidity. All right, any type of jump that challenges that. But as I said before, all right, you don't need to follow all of this to a T. But if you have no idea where to start for a warm-up, make sure you're going to target at all 4 of these things. And then there is a bonus one at the end that I will throw in right now. So this is the S part, so a ramps. This is getting a little technical and a little crazy, all right, but this is skill development. So this is a bonus one. So skill development, if you were to warm up for your sport, all right, I know we're talking about sprinting here, but I just want to add in, if you're warming up for your sport, you want to kind of follow this guideline and then get into your skill work. All right, I worked in a baseball facility for multiple years. The thing that drove me nuts were kids just walking into the facility and taking swings right off the bat, literally right off the tee. All right, as soon as they walked in, they didn't stretch. They might have like put the bat over their head and they got right into it. And then it takes them 10 to 15 swings to even get loose in order for them to feel good to move on to the next thing. Why not just spend the first 10 minutes instead of wasting time, Or you're wasting swings, pretty much. You're reinforcing bad habits. You're not warm, so your body's going to feel all stiff and rigid, and it's not going to feel good. So instead of trying to feel out your swing, why not just take the time to go through the warm-up, 10 minutes at most, maybe 15 for the guys that really have mobility restrictions, but then go into your skill work, and you'll feel a lot better, and you'll get more out of your skill work with just a simple 10-15 minute warm-up. All right, it's really easy to skip, all right, but it's really easy to do as well. So you have to pick, do I want to feel better, move better, and stack those wins over time? Or do I want to just skip it and go right into my skill work and never worry about my mobility or my warm-up at all? All right, for people that don't realize, if you're doing skill work 5 days a week, you take 15 minutes at max, 15 minutes. I'll do 10 minutes to save my math skills because I don't know if I'll be able to do that. But if you take 5 days a week where you do your skill work and you practice and you work out and you take 10 minutes to warm up and you focus on active control of your joints, you're really focusing on your mobility piece and you're really taking your warm up serious. That's 50 minutes every single week of moving your body in a way that will be beneficial to your sport. Stack that over a month, and then stack that over 3 months, and then stack that over a year. From day 1 to day 365, you'll probably move a lot better. You'll be at a less risk of injury just because your body has the ability and the capacity to move with much larger ranges of motion, and your skills development, no matter what sport you play, will probably feel a lot better and you'll get a lot more out of it. And I guarantee taking the time to do that 10 to 15 minute warm up before you get into your skill work will pay massive dividends towards your athletic journey and to your athletic goals, no matter what sport you play. All right, so in review, the ramp method, ramps for our bonus additive. All right, remember to raise your heart rate, activate your key muscle groups for what you're going to be working for that session, mobilize key muscle groups and areas of focus. So for sprinting, remember I said the hips, the glutes, the hamstrings. Potentiate, probably the most important one out of all of them. All right, you want to make sure the brain is firing on all cylinders to get the most out of your skill work, which is number 5. All right, your skill development section. All right, so I hope this helps. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, I want to let you guys know that I have released a free speed and plyo program. It is 8 weeks long. All I ask is you check out the link down below. It'll link you to my website. You go to the download now, and all you have to do is put in your email. It's free, 8 weeks, and it gives you 3 days a week of training, of sprints, plyometrics, and how to do them. All right, so if you're interested in that, or you can go to my latest Instagram post and just comment speed on any of them, and that'll take you right there too. But if you made it this far, thank you. I appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment for what you want to hear about next. I already kind of alluded to what I want to talk about, sprint biomechanics in this episode. But if you don't want to hear that and someone else comments and wants to hear something different, by all means, go for it. All right, but that is it for this Whiteboard Wednesday. I will see you guys next week. Hitman out.